You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
On Thursday, we saw the report that conversations with Mike Denbrock and Notre Dame were getting serious. And on Friday, it is now official. Mike Denbrock is headed back to South Bend to be the Notre Dame offensive coordinator. LSU has announced that Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton will share duties as co-offensive coordinators for the bowl game as Mike Denbrock's time in Baton Rouge is done after 2 seasons. I want to run through some thoughts and some reaction to this news. I think one of the first things that LSU, from an LSU perspective, you might be saying is, okay, well, why would Denbrock leave for what appears to be a lateral move? And then, also, didn't he just sign an extension with LSU? I mean, that's the two things that primarily, I think, are weighing on LSU fans today. So a couple of things. Mike Denbrock wouldn't leave LSU for any job. Notre Dame offered some things that LSU couldn't or wouldn't. They offered proximity to family, they offered staff familiarity, and they offered more money. And in total, that ended up being enough for Denbrock to take this job. A couple things that you may not know. Number one, Mike Denbrock is from Homer, Michigan. Homer, Michigan is, from South Bend, the equivalent of like New Orleans to Lafayette. So his family is an hour and a half away. LSU can't compete with that, proximity to family. Yes, Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly are good friends and have been for a long, long time. But Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman coached together at Cincinnati and were under Luke Fickell. So Denbrock was the OC and Freeman was the DC at Cincinnati. And as I understand it, Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman got along very well. Also, when you are the offensive coordinator under a defensive-minded head coach, you're kind of like the head coach for the offense. There is no meddling. The head coach says, you go do the offense, I'll be over here and do the defense. So there was that appeal as well. There are a couple of members of Mike Denbrock's offensive staff from Cincinnati who Marcus Freeman hired at Notre Dame. Mike Brown was on the offensive staff at Cincinnati under Mike Denbrock. He's at Notre Dame right now. And Gino Jadulia is also on staff at Notre Dame. He was on staff at Cincinnati under Mike Denbrock as well. So again, close to home. Denbrock's done 2 different stints at Notre Dame, so there's familiarity with the school, the culture, everything there in South Bend. He's near his family. He gets along with Marcus Freeman. He's going to have autonomy offensively. There's already guys on the offensive staff that he's worked with and likes. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of connective tissue that all sort of paired together here to make this make a lot of sense. And then the other part of this is, as I was told today, Notre Dame's offer was even better than the offer A&M came with. The highest paid offensive coordinator in the country is at Clemson, making just north of $2 million a year. And A&M was reportedly going to make Mike Denbrock Garrett Riley, by the way, is who I'm talking about. Texas A&M was going to make Mike Denbrock the highest paid offensive coordinator in the country. As I'm told, Notre Dame, who doesn't normally go into bidding wars for coaches, like they don't just, they're a private school, so they don't have to disclose what they pay, but Notre Dame let Brian Kelly walk when LSU offered him nearly a 10-year, $100 million contract. They're like, we're good. That's not really Notre Dame's MO. They have the money, but they don't typically spend it like that. But as I understand it, Notre Dame was not going to lose Mike Denbrock because of price. So if you're Denbrock, It's an opportunity to go closer to home, to work on a staff with people you know and respect, and they're going to pay you more money. The other thing that is unfortunate from the LSU perspective is after A&M came calling and LSU gathered together a better deal for Denbrock and offered him the new contract to extend him and keep him in Baton Rouge. It's my understanding that this deal never got done. Now I told you this on Thursday, that the LSU Board of Supervisors doesn't meet until February 23rd. So the board would still have to rubber stamp a deal before Denbrock could sign it. But you could still legally put in provisions to ratify, I don't know if I'm using the correct legal term, forgive me, but to move that along, to show Mike Denbrock, here is your deal. It's done, it's written, here's the terms, here's what we're going to do, how we'll retroactively or back pay, whatever it may be. And LSU didn't do that. So if you're Mike Denbrock, you have a verbal agreement on a new contract at LSU. But since you agreed to that back on December the 6th, in the 2 weeks since, there's been no movement there. And now you have a burden hand of this offer to go to Notre Dame where they're going to pay you way more than you're making now. And all the other things I just talked about, it comes down to you go back to your current employer and say, they're offering me all of this. What are we going to do? Well, you take the job because LSU wasn't going to match the money. And clearly it was a situation where LSU was okay losing Denbrock at this point. I think something worth considering always when you look at, and I've done this long enough to have gone through a bajillion coaching searches, and there are commonalities among all of it at times. And one of the realities is that young coaches tend to be upwardly mobile. Young coaches want to generally be a head coach. So they're constantly looking for how they can advance their career. Joe Sloan is a great example of this on LSU's current staff. Joe Sloan started his career at USF as a quality control assistant. He goes to Louisiana Tech as a position coach, then becomes the Louisiana Tech OC. So he's a G5 OC, then comes to LSU as the quarterbacks coach, so to Power 5 position coach. And what he's going to be looking for now is how do I get to be an OC and then a head coach? That is being upwardly mobile. At this point in Mike Denbrock's career, where he's 59 years old, I'm not trying to call Mike Denbrock old. I'm not saying 59 is old, but in a relative sense compared to coaches who are looking to be upwardly mobile and become head coaches, yeah. Like you don't typically, like Brent Venables was 50 when he got hired at Oklahoma to be there, or maybe he was 48, he's 50 now, to be the head coach, his first head coaching job. He was almost 50. Mike Denbrock's a decade older than Brent Venables. So my point is, like Denbrock at this point in his career isn't doing the job hop thing to try to get an opportunity to be a head coach somewhere in the G5. You know what I mean? Like beyond that. So to the why would you make a lateral move type deal? Well, this is why, because it's not about a lateral move. The money's going to be good. It's about the situation, it's familiarity, and it's even better money in South Bend. I will say it's disappointing that LSU didn't protect itself. And that is a spot in this whole thing where LSU screwed up. You agreed in principle to a new deal with Mike Denbrock 2 weeks ago, and then you let it sit. And you allowed another suitor to come in and close the deal. And I told you this on Thursday. But Jimmy Sexton, who represents Elko and Freeman, was an intermediary here, right? So he knew Denbrock was willing to listen. He knew what A&M offered. That almost got it done. And so he knew what Notre Dame could offer with all the other things I said that would get it done. And ultimately he did. It is disappointing that LSU didn't dot their I's, cross their T's to make sure this got done to keep Mike Denbrock. And now you're going to be in search for a new OC, along with a new starting quarterback. I mean, the continuity of having Denbrock with Nussmeier would have been a great thing. And unfortunately, it ain't going to work out that way. So LSU is in search now for a new offensive coordinator. Mike Denbrock will not coach the bowl game. I mean, he's now Notre Dame's offensive coordinator. So he will not coach the bowl game. Joe Sloan, Cortez Hankton will be co-offensive coordinators for the bowl game. My assumption here is that Sloan is going to call plays because he has experience doing it. He did it for 2 seasons at Louisiana Tech in 2020 and 2021. But Brian Kelly's going to need to nail this hire. Yes, he is an offensive-minded head coach, but now you're talking about a new offensive coordinator coupled with a new quarterback replacing the Heisman winner and the OC that was the maestro of the best offense in college football. So you need to nail this hire, whoever it's going to be. It is a big loss for LSU. It's a great hire for Notre Dame. This is a big loss for LSU. But when you're a great program, you're going to lose assistants. That's the nature of it. When you're a great program, you do well, your assistants are going to be sought after. This is nothing new for LSU. But you got to be able to make a great hire to replace the guys that you lose. We've seen Brian Kelly do that throughout his career. He's going to have to do it again. It's unfortunate because after A&M came calling and LSU was able to fight them off, it felt like that was stable and that you had a deal in place to keep Mike Denbrock in Baton Rouge. But it wasn't to be. Just 2 weeks later, Notre Dame came calling, and now LSU's looking for a new offensive coordinator. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.